Well,
that
hurts. Oh, we're live. We are live. Let's see. We have one viewer. I suspect that's my mom.
Hi.
Hi. We'll get started in just a minute. Wonderful learners, boys and girls, moms and dads, and caregivers. Oh, we have another viewer. Yay. And we're just getting our camera angles all set up. And we're getting ready to go. Checking our reading glasses.
Checking our reading glasses.
Check. But it looks like, if someone would be so kind to leave a comment, it looks like we have good audio. Looks like everyone can hear us, and it looks like everyone can see us. But if that is not the case, if someone could text me or put a comment, because I think we're ready to go.
Okay.
Because if you are ready to listen, then I am ready to present Tales. Getting up. Tales, and trails. So here I am, boys and girls, moms and dads and caregivers. It's Mrs. Baker broadcasting live for Tales, and Trails. And can you imagine where I am? My good little readers, someone should put in the comment if they have just a little idea of where we are today. I know many of you have been here and you love this place, and you know and love one of my dearest friends, Donna Miller, co-owner, I guess we have to remember Jim in this too, Petals in the Pines right here in Canterbury. Now, boys, good girls, and good little learners, there are so many libraries all over the state that have story walks. But really what they are, they're just pages of books on the outside of a library. Not here in Canterbury, because only a mile and a half away from our library is a full tale trail. And here is Donna, and she's just going to tell you a little bit about Petals in the Pines before we read the book that is featured on this tale trail.
Thank you, Mrs. Baker. And hi, everybody. And yes, we're at Petals in the Pines, and we are certified by the Arbor Day Foundation, which is an organization about supporting trees. So it's perfect for this story that we have. And we have, the story comes to life when you walk the trails and you read the pages and you're in amongst oak trees and oak tree seedlings all around you, and you might even see some wildlife while you're here. And then when you're done, you get to come out here in the pavilion and play, and we have activities. You're going to see them later. Mrs. Baker will give you a little tour. So we hope you get the library pass and come see us.
Thank you, Donna.
You're welcome.
And I am going to read now from In a Nutshell, and Donna's going to come back a little bit later, and we're going to show you some of the activities that you can do here and some that you can do at home. But before I start, I want us all to take a nice breath into our nose, let it out through our mouth, and in through our nose, and out through our mouth. And just be very mindful of our surroundings. Now, aren't we lucky that we live in a town such as Canterbury, New Hampshire, where we can be together, if even on a computer, and be in this beautiful surrounding. My skin is kind of tingling because I'm feeling so much gratitude for being here with one of my dearest friends. And can you hear the birds in the distance? Can you hear the rain lightly tapping on the roof? It's always raining around here in Canterbury recently, but I'm just thankful to be here. Now, the book that I'm going to read is the book that is featured on the Tale Trail here at Petals in the Pines. And when I'm reading this to you, I think you can see it well, when I'm reading, I want you to think about the things that you could see in this book on the tale trail. Now, if you haven't done a tale trail before, what you do is you start at the beginning, and I'm all these pictures for you. Well, first thing you do is you get the pass from the library. Sorry about that. It's a free pass. Just contact us and get the free pass and come up to Baptist Road at Petals and you start on the trail. You walk along the trail. Pages posted along the way. And there are things mentioned in the book that you can find right along the trail. So without further ado, take a deep breath in your nose, out through your mouth, Listen to In a Nutshell by Joseph Anthony. Illustrations by Chris Arbo. Here we go. In a Nutshell. I'm so glad you're here. Dawn sparkled on the green forest. I'm going to move my chair a little bit. Can you see that? You're going to have to come take this book out if you really want to examine the pages, or come do the tail trail. High in the treetops, plump acorns were leaving their sunlit home and falling into the darkness below. One little acorn wanted to stay forever. But do you have acorns at your house? You do. A moment later, it landed with a thump. Make a thump with me, can't you? Thump. And it lay very still. The forest floor was very, very dark. Oh. And somewhere deep inside, the acorn knew it must get back to the sunlight. It would have to break free of itself, become bigger than it was. Well, from time to time. So when the season was right, the acorn burst open. It pushed out roots and a stem and stretched itself to a tiny sapling. Now, I have to stop right here and show you that Dawn has a jaded acorn. And can you see by these leaves? This is an oak tree. Now, later in our presentation, we'll go over to the leaf identifying table. You, when you're at home or here at Petals in the Pines, can identify trees by their leaves. It's a very... The sapling took food from the wet soil. It soaked up every drop of light. It's tiny each day. As days, years, the sapling discovered that becoming an oak wasn't easy. Hungry mouths nibbled at it. Do you see hungry mouths were nibbling at it? These little marks. That's right. And vines choked it. Oof. I have vine in my house. And some was ice cold. And then other times it's burning hot. And the animals in the forest. Hard times made the vine strong as it grew into a tree. Yet even the strongest trees weren't safe from everything. Still, it kept growing and reaching for the sun. Now, do you see what's happening? Do you see that our illustrator, Chris Arbo, has shown that this is long ago? Do you see how they're dressed? And what are they doing? Are they building a log cabin? But they used our oak tree as a focal point of their yard. Years passed. What was once a small acorn became the tallest tree in the forest, with years of sturdy branches flowed over. Now, do you see? It did a long job at listening. It drew life to the oak trees and food to the forest creatures. What? Feel free to tell what these things are. That's a turkey. And too many, the tree gave a home. Have they built a tree house? And the mighty oak, I think they have. Is the oak strong enough to hold them up? Ooh, sure is. But when it was old and tired, and its limbs and roots were rotten, the mighty tree could grow no more. Its life as an oak was almost over. The only way for it to become bigger than it was now was to die. It's kind of a sad page, but watch what happens. When the tree fell, its crash shook the whole forest. Look at that lightning storm. Worms and bugs took the tree's life and returned it to the soil. Do you see these types of creatures when you're out in the woods? Especially now, I'm finding so many mushrooms around my house because it's so wet. And finally, the tree became a pile of rich, dark earth. No one remembered that it was once a living tree grown from an acorn. So can you imagine when we show the germinated acorn and the start of the oak, and then it turns into just a big mighty tree, even more. It seemed that the oak will forever when another tree was there. And the life of the oak passed from the soil into the new tree, a cherry tree. Do you like cherries? Oh, look at that. And when the tree grew up, birds ate the fruit, scattering cherry seeds and new life all through the forest. Look at that. Isn't that a beautiful picture? Until the life of the little acorn became part of everything. Look at that. I love the smiles on that page. Now, in the end, there are some other nature awareness books. We have many of those at the library. And of course, we have this at the library ready for your checkout. Now, a wonderful thing about reading is so often books can come alive. And here at Petals in the Pines, this book comes to life in a real wonderful way. So I want you to bear with me, ladies and gentlemen, and boys and girls, and good YouTube viewers all over the world. I want to give you a little tour of the pavilion here at Petals in the Pines. So we'll bring Donna back in, and I'm going to unplug and use this laptop much like a camera. Now, can you see all that we have to offer? Look at this. Donna has done such a beautiful job, and I'm going to walk around with Donna. And she's going to show us a little bit about what is here. As you can see outside, it's a beautiful. Over here, boys and girls, in front of the chicken coop is a mud kitchen. Oh, wouldn't you have fun doing that? And after you take the tail trail, you come into this pavilion and meet up with Donna. Hi, Donna. And she has things to show you right here.
Well, this is the Tail Trail activity table. So when you're all done, there's some fun things that you can do here after you walk the trail. And Mrs. Baker was reading, I went and pulled up a couple of the oak seedlings that were growing outside because we have so many oak trees and the acorns fall and they root. Now, unfortunately, this time of year, the acorns have already separated from the root system. But in the spring, when you pull these up, the acorns are still attached. But you can see that the top grows out of one end and the roots come out the other. And eventually, the acorn rots and falls off. But we end up with so many oak seedlings because of all the oak trees that we have here. Maybe you've done this activity before, but you can learn the age of a tree by counting tree rings. So for every year of a tree's life, there is a ring in the bark. And I'm not sure if the camera will pick them up very well on here, but we have several different pieces of wood here, and you can patiently count all the rings to see how many years old these trees were when they were cut. We have a couple of graphics here. So if you want to learn about the anatomy of an acorn, we have that. This is a maple leaf to learn about the anatomy of that. We have a matching game that's really fun. So we have some actual leaves that I have laminated here.
Oh, look at those.
So they're in a basket. And then we have pictures hanging up here. So you get to go through and figure out which leaf goes with what tree.
Sorry.
We have a few mosquitoes here visiting today.
Yes.
And some of these are kind of tricky. So, it's a fun matching game that you can do.
And that last year is when I learned about a tree on my property that I didn't know about.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that reminds me that if you go in the archive of our Elkins Public Library and Mrs. Baker's YouTube channel, there is a wonderful production of Peter Rabbit.
Oh, yes.
Which we did last year. And then we also did a tree activity later in the year to promote the Tail Trail. And that is on the Elkins Public Library website as well. So check those out.
And the Peter Rabbit one is on our website, too.
Because that's
on the homepage.
That's a big deal.
So there are a couple other fun tree books that we have here. These are really fun that have the clear overlays. Yes, so those are fun. And then if you want to have a coloring sheet, we have the life cycle of the oak tree. And so you can color all the different parts of it. And I think did we leave the oak? Can you grab
Yes.
the oak sheet over here? You stay put.
All right.
But we have this right here, which shows the difference between a red oak and a white oak. And you can see how the leaves are shaped very differently.
They
And
are.
we have both red oaks and white oaks here, and we have the trees labeled on the trail. And it's hard to see the leaves because they're way up high,
Right.
but the bark looks very different. A red oak
Oh,
has red in the bark,
okay.
and a white oak looks a little grayish. I wouldn't call it white, but yes, yeah. So you can see the difference.
I didn't
when you
know
come
that. I
here.
learn so much when I come here. I
And
really do.
the last thing I wanted to share, and this is something families can take home, but I was explaining to Mrs. Baker that
Yeah.
the oak tree is called a keystone plant. It is one of the most important plants that we can grow and have on our property for caterpillars, which feed birds. So it's called a host plant for moths and butterflies. They lay their eggs on the leaves. A lot of you know the milkweed plant is where the monarch lays its
Yes.
eggs. So there are many other moths and butterflies that lay their eggs on the leaves of oak trees, and the caterpillars hatch from them. They'll be eating the leaves, but the birds come and they get the caterpillars to feed their babies. And it takes thousands of caterpillars for
Thousands?
one nest of birds.
Thousands?
Yes. And it takes them about 2 weeks to raise out their young in the nest. And that's the only food they can eat. Bird seed doesn't work. It's too hard for them.
Huh.
So the mama birds are looking and daddy birds are looking for caterpillars. And
Yes.
if you have an oak tree, you are feeding a lot of birds. So that's important. And this is a list of other
I
trees that are
thought
good
that
to
was
grow.
neat.
Yes. So
So
those are some of the
important.
things at this activity table.
And look over here.
We've got a different books here of all different subjects. We've got books about fairy houses, and you can build a fairy house while
Oh,
you're here.
look at that. That's a good shot of that area.
Yes, gather some nature materials off the ground, and you can build something against a tree or a rock. This is actually
This is so neat.
this is cut from a tree. And I saw it on the side of the road. One of our neighbors, Ted West, he cut this tree. And I said, that looks like a butterfly to
It
me. So he
does.
cut me several slabs. I painted them. And what you can do, I have this table here with chalk, and you can create your own butterfly pattern. So you can color on it and make your own butterfly pattern. And when you're done, you can wash it off
It
and
wipes off.
do another one, kind of like an Etch-a-Sketch.
That's
If
neat.
you want to come over to this
I will
table,
go right over here.
we have all different things. If you want to go out and look for bugs or
Oh.
red Fs, things like that, little newts that crawl on the ground, you can look at them in here in a magnifying glass. And this magnifying glass is here. Just make sure to return the animals to
Yes,
their natural
please.
spot. We have coloring pages. We've got musical instruments,
Look at
We've got
everything.
party hats,
I love a good party
dress
hat.
up hats, and dress up clothes. And
Oh
here,
my goodness. And look, do you see something out there, boys and girls, that you'd like to play with? I know that I do. And that's one of my favorite things to do here at Petals in the Pine is to play in the outdoor activity. Donna and Jim have swings and a sandbox and all sorts of things to do.
a tree fort, a musical kitchen,
Oh my
and
goodness.
musical instruments that you can play. Recycle pots and pans. Yeah. This is a table that we have set up all about pollinators and wildflowers. And so we have
Pretty.
some little matching cards that you can do. We have wildflower bingo that you can play.
And I've never played that.
That's a fun game. And there's some more coloring pages that we have here too.
Wow. And
Yep.
look.
Oh, and speaking of mushrooms, there's one popping up right
Well,
there.
I tell you, they are popping up. Can you see it right there? Oh my goodness. Now, if you're watching this presentation from somewhere other than Canterbury, New Hampshire, we have things that you can do to help our environment wherever you are. And so Donna has prepped a lovely little craft that you can do here at Petals in the Pines, or you could do at home. And let's do that now over at the Bee Hotel. Is that what we're calling it?
Well, the craft is the
The craft is the
Correct.
hotel.
So if you set up that on the red table,
Then everyone
we'll
can
do it
see
from
us.
here. Yes, I guess I'll sit down so I can get a little lower.
There we go. Oh, that works, doesn't it? Oh, we're doing great. Look at that. Oh, what a neat thing.
So, what I wanted to share with you today is about creating a space for bees. And I'm not talking about honeybees because they live in hives, but the other bees, which are native to our country, are called solitary bees. They do not live in hives. Some of them live underground, some of them live in piles of sticks, and you can create a space so you can watch how they live. And I'm going to ask you to take this and be very careful. There's thorns on that one on the left. Hold it up close to the camera. These are sticks that I put in my bee hotel, and you see that hole, the holes at the end? They were not there when I put those sticks in the bee hotel. The bees eat the middle of those sticks out, and they go in and they lay their eggs in there. And the eggs will be in for usually about a year and will hatch out the following year. So I'm going to show you how you could easily create one. And a couple that are really good sticks, you have both an elderberry, which elderberry grows on the side of the road. You might have some on your property. They have a big round white flower that I think just finished blooming, and they turn to the purple berries. Right. But the sticks, when you have dying canes off of that, those sticks work really well. And the other thing is what I refer to as brambles with the thorns.
We know those.
So I'm putting on my thick leather gloves to handle one.
And can you see the thorns? They're very sharp.
So you may have some of this growing on property or on the edge of the road, or the edge of the woods. For me, it comes up. Sometimes it bends into my gardens and gets in the way, so I like to cut them down. And I'm wearing my gloves because there are thorns on them. And what you want to do is cut these canes to about 6 to 8 inches. And so I like to get them all around the same length, and I'll cut off the side branches like this. And then you can bundle them all together. Mrs. Baker took a picture of my bee hotel, so that will show up on Facebook later, because we took cinder blocks and laid it on its side and put the canes in the whole area.
When I see that picture, it's really amazing. And it's really a neat thing to look at. So it might be a neat thing if you asked your mom or dad or caregiver if they had a place somewhere on your property that you could put a bee hotel. It's actually a really neat feature. I'll show you pictures of that later after our presentation.
So I've clustered some together here. I've got about 6 or 8 here. And there's a couple ways you could make one. You could take a tin can like this size, like a soup can size, and you want to fill it up to the point where you can't push one more in. It's tight. Okay. Yes, because what'll happen is they might dry a little bit, and then they can start to fall out. So if they start to dry a little, you can always tuck a couple more in. Okay. And it's good because it has a back. So when the bees go in and they eat out the center of that cane, they're going to go to the back. They're going to lay an egg. They mix pollen and nectar together. When the bees fly around to the flowers, they're collecting that and mixed together. It's called bee bread. And they put a little bit of bee bread next to the egg, and they do a petition of mud, usually. And then they lay another egg and bee bread and a petition. And so they're all laid in there. And the following year, they will hatch out. And what they do when they hatch, they have the bee bread to eat. It's sitting right there for them to eat. Isn't that cool? Yeah.
I didn't know that. So and that all happens right in here.
Right in there.
And did you have any idea? I didn't. I mean, that's the neatest thing.
And you don't have to be scared of these bees because they don't sting. They're not aggressive bees. They're not protecting a hive. And when you find yellow jackets or you get around honeybees that are trying to protect their hive, that's when you can get stung. These guys are little and friendly. A lot of times they look like little flies. Yeah. And sometimes they're so teeny tiny small.
I just wouldn't even recognize them maybe as
a bee. You might not know. And sometimes they're greenish colored or bluish colored. You know, they're not like your traditional yellow black that you think of as.
Well, that's good to know, because I did notice the last few weeks of school, I was invited to come up to Canterbury Elementary School quite a few times, and I could do my classes in the tent. And there were quite a few yellow jackets in that tent. Do you remember? And we talked so much about those, and there was quite a few of you that really weren't comfortable. And I kept telling you, oh no, they just like Mrs. Baker's fancy perfume. They're not going to bother us. And it sounds like these bees wouldn't even be interested in that.
They don't. Okay. No, they're not going to bother you, and you can walk around them. And I've gone out to the bee hotel and watched where they come down and they fly into their hole, and you wait a minute and then they come back out again. They're going in and laying their eggs or putting their bee bread in. And they are going to the garden flowers, the wildflowers, the weeds that we have in our yards and properties. So it's really important to have lots of flowers, different kinds of flowers, different colors. And you want them flowering all through the season. So that's why in the beginning of the year, we're always saying, save your dandelions for the bees.
Right.
And at the end of the year, we like goldenrod and asters. That grows naturally around here, and it's really good for the bees. So once you have all your canes, you can either put them in a can like this, put them nice and tight. You can hang it somewhere. You want it facing south, so it's sunny and warm. And you want it so there's an overhang. You don't want these canes to get wet because then they'll just get all moldy and it won't be good for the bees.
And they won't really be drawn to it, will they?
Right, probably not.
Okay.
Yeah. And then just tipped down just a hair, just so it doesn't fill with any rainwater if it's blowing rainwater or anything like that, which we've seen a little of lately. And then you just leave it alone and just watch it. And eventually you will start to see little holes at the end of the canes, and you know that the bees are going in there.
And you're doing your part, because one thing that, well, many things we've learned here at Petals in the Pines over the years, and I don't know if you've done their Spread Your Wings activity, but those happen Thursdays from 9 to 2, and you need to go to Petals in the Pine website, which I've linked many times. I'll do that again on our Facebook page, and we have multiple links. I counted them, 5 links on Elkins Public Library's website, where you can come directly to that website, make a reservation for Spread Your Wings, but there's all sorts of information on there.
Yes.
And we've always learned about how we can help monarchs. In fact, I mention your name all the time when I'm in the garden, and Mr. Baker will say, "Don't you pull that milkweed." Donna will be upset with you. And so Donna has said some wonderful things over the years that I've kept in my beautiful little brain and thought, this is how I can help. And now here we have found a way to help bees, which of course pollinate. And you know that word. And Donna is an expert, a master gardener. And I don't know if you're specializing in pollinating, but she was on the radio, New Hampshire Public Radio, earlier this winter, talking with Laura Canoy about pollinating gardens. And that was exciting.
And actually, as far as master gardeners go, I'm working towards my advanced master gardener training.
I didn't know that.
And we've been asked to specialize in a topic, and my topic is pollinators and native plants.
I'm very proud of you. I am so proud of my friend Donna, and she has such wonderful things here to do. So these are activities that you can do. Now, I know, because we do activities at the library, that sometimes there are young people that like to run around and get dirty, but there are also young learners, some of them very near and dear to me, that like to do quiet little activities. So here at Petals in the Pines, they have all sorts of things. You could spend all your time right here in the pavilion reading a book. Donna said that there are so many times that a child will come and just put out a book to a parent or a caregiver, and they'll sit and read in this beautiful space. So there's all sorts of things here to do.
That's right.
So thank you, Donna, for having us.
Yes.
And if you could stay for just a few more minutes, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you. I want to say to you, I am so very proud of you, and to give you just a little bit more information about the library. So many of you are coming and visiting me all the time, and that helps me grow, just like Donna is growing in her profession and learning how to do new things and be an advanced master gardener. That's very exciting. She always has some neat news that she presents during a broadcast.
Sorry.
I love it, though. It captures my actual love and respect for one of my dear friends. And she's a friend of all of ours, and you should come spend some time with her here. So spend some time with me too. I'm not wearing them now because they're in the car and I'm live broadcasting. But have you been collecting brag tags? So many of you are getting so good at reading. Now, brag tags are a really neat thing. They're just little tags that you wear on a chain. You can choose a regular old chain that I have at the library, or a beautiful colored cord, purple, blue, black, yellow, orange, and white. We have them all at Elkins Public Library. And you and I will sit down and we'll talk about where you are in your reading. Or you can sit down with your mom or dad or caregiver, whoever you spend the most time with, and talk to them about how you could earn brag tags. And basically, you set your own goal. I'm into self regulation because we used to do these coloring charts, right? And we'd fill in all these little circles with how many minutes you've read or chapters or books. But I know all too well how well parents can fill out coloring charts. I know they're really good at it. But what I want you to do is I want you to find joy in reading or using the library. That's right. You don't have to be an avid reader to earn brag tags. What if you came to visit me at the library? What if you did an activity at home or took one of our coloring sheets or watched one of our videos? What if you liked and subscribed on my YouTube page? That would be using your library. And I think you would earn a brag tag. So anyone at the library, if I'm out on location or working from home, anyone at the library can help you with your brag tags. Now, the one other thing I want to mention is next week. On July 21st, I'll be broadcasting live with my beagles. That's right. Yes, it's not going to be as smooth as perhaps today was because working with live animals gets a lot of viewers, but might be a little jumpy and woofy because my twin beagles are joining me next week because Elkins Public Library is collaborating with Pope Memorial SPCA for a animal food drive. We'll be collecting all sorts of things at the library. I'm going to put some information on Facebook and our website. And also, I've already posted their Amazon wish list, but we're collecting things that we can donate to Pope Memorial SPCA that will get into the hands of real animal owners that are in need. And we'll be talking more about that. So join us next week, July 21st at 11 on YouTube Live in this very space that you're in now. And we will talk about how Tails and Tales, we can do meaningful work in our life to help animals. So I'm going to say goodbye. And as always, you know how proud I am of you. And I hope that you'll come to the library and get the free pass for Petals in the Pines. It's a big part of our library world, and we want to share it with you. And once again, thank you to the Millers for having Petals in the Pines and for joining me today. I'll see you soon. Remember, I love you and I'm proud of you.